The observation room was packed. Word had spread across the entire academy that the human student had requested special conditions for his demonstration. Students stood shoulder to shoulder. Professors lined the back walls. Even the academy's dean had arrived to watch. Jiho stood in the preparation chamber, breathing slowly. Through the window, he could see the Void Ripper's habitat. It wasn't the bright, controlled environment used for yesterday's demonstrations. This was darker, filled with shadows and sharp rocks, the creature's natural home. Hana pressed her hand against the glass separating the preparation chamber from the observation room. Her expression was full of worry. Jiho gave her what he hoped was a confident smile. Professor Velmara's voice came through the speaker. Kang Jiho, this is your final chance to withdraw. What you're attempting violates 7 safety protocols. I am required to remind you that death is a genuine possibility. I understand, Jiho said. His voice was steady even though his heart raced. Very well. May your evolution serve you. Beginning demonstration in 30 seconds. Jiho closed his eyes. He thought of home. The wolf pack sleeping in the sun. The tiger grooming itself by the pond. The bear teaching its cubs to fish. His grandmother's voice. Fear is just a language you haven't learned to speak yet. The door opened. Jiho stepped into the Void Ripper's habitat. The temperature dropped immediately. The air smelled like stone and something else, something sharp and metallic. His eyes adjusted to the darkness. Rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth. Shadows pooled in every corner, and somewhere in those shadows the Void Ripper waited. Jiho walked to the center of the space. Then he did something that made the entire observation room gasp. He sat down, cross-legged, hands resting on his knees, and he closed his eyes. What is he doing? Someone in the observation room shouted. He's given up, another voice said. No, Hana whispered, pressing closer to the glass. He's doing something else. Jiho focused on his breathing. Slow, steady. He let his other senses expand. He could hear the faint hum of recycled air, the slight echo of the observation room beyond the walls, and something else. A soft sound like cloth sliding over stone. The Void Ripper was moving. He kept his eyes closed. Kept breathing. His grandmother had taught him this. Don't look at the predator directly. Direct eye contact is a challenge, a threat. Instead, show that you're not prey, that you're aware but not afraid. The sound came closer. He could feel the displacement of air. The creature was circling him, studying him, trying to understand what this strange being was doing. Jiho began to make a sound. Not words, just a soft rhythmic clicking. A neutral sound, neither aggressive nor frightened. The kind of sound that said, I'm here. I know you're there. I mean no harm. Minutes passed. The observation room was silent. Everyone watched, barely breathing. The Void Ripper emerged from the shadows. It stood 10 feet away, its pale yellow eyes fixed on Jiho. It was even more terrifying up close. Shadow seemed to drip from its body like water. Its 6 limbs moved in ways that hurt to watch, bending at impossible angles. Jiho heard it but didn't open his eyes. Not yet. He continued the clicking pattern, changing the rhythm slightly. Slower now, calmer. The Ripper took a step closer. Then another. It was testing. Seeing if this human would run, would fight, would show fear. Jiho remained still. He kept his breathing even. He thought about the wolf pack on his grandmother's farm, how they had tested him the same way when he was young, approaching, circling, watching for any sign of threat or weakness, and how when he showed neither they had accepted him. More minutes passed. The Ripper circled completely around Jiho, so close now that Jiho could hear its breathing, could feel the cold that radiated from its body. Slowly, very slowly, Jiho opened his eyes, but he didn't look at the Ripper. He looked down at the ground. A submissive gesture. Not prey-like submission, but respectful acknowledgement. I see you. I respect your space. I'm not here to challenge you. The Ripper's head tilted. Its multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a strange rippling effect. It made a sound, something between a growl and a chirp. A question, maybe? Or confusion. Jiho extended his hand. Not quickly. Not aggressively. Just a slow, steady movement. Palm down, fingers relaxed. He held it there, not reaching toward the Ripper, just offering. Showing that he had no weapons, no threats. The Ripper watched the hand. Its body language changed. The predatory crouch relaxed slightly. Its head lowered, eyes focusing on Jiho's palm. In the observation room, Professor Velmara stood frozen. all 6 arms hanging limp. She had studied predator behavior for 60 years. This was impossible. Void Rippers didn't have social behaviors. They didn't communicate. They hunted and killed. That was all. Yet here was a Void Ripper, clearly confused, clearly trying to understand what this human was doing. 20 minutes into the demonstration, the Ripper did something unprecedented. It sat down. Not the crouch of a hunter preparing to pounce, but actually sat, its 6 limbs folding beneath it. It was still watching Jiho, still alert but no longer aggressive. Jiho began speaking. Not to the Ripper, but to himself. A soft, steady stream of words in Korean. It didn't matter what language. What mattered was the tone, the rhythm, the calmness. He was showing the Ripper that sounds didn't have to mean threat or territory or challenge. Sounds could just be communication. The Ripper's eyes half closed. It was relaxing. Jiho slowly moved his hand forward. Inch by inch. It took 5 minutes to close half the distance between them. The Ripper watched but didn't move away. When Jiho's hand was close enough, he stopped, waited. The next move had to be the Ripper's choice. The observation room was completely silent now. Students who had been skeptical, professors who had been critical, even those who had mocked the human students, all watched in stunned silence. The Void Ripper leaned forward. Its head came closer to Jiho's hand. One of its strange angular limbs extended, moved toward Jiho's fingers. Contact. The Ripper's limb touched Jiho's hand. The touch lasted only a second before the creature pulled back. But it was enough. First contact. Peaceful contact, something no one had ever achieved with a Void Ripper before. Tears ran down Hana's face in the observation room. She understood what she was seeing. This wasn't dominance. This wasn't taming. This was communication. 2 intelligent beings from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, finding a way to understand each other. Jiho didn't try to touch the Ripper again. That wasn't the point. He had shown that it was possible, that the Void Ripper wasn't a mindless killing machine. It was a creature that could think, could choose, could communicate in its own way. He sat with the Ripper for another 10 minutes. Sometimes the creature moved away, exploring its habitat, but it kept coming back, checking on Jiho, curious about this strange being who didn't smell like food and didn't act like prey. Finally, Professor Vilmara's voice came through the speakers, shaky and uncertain. Demonstration concluded. Kang Jiho, please exit through the primary door. Jiho stood slowly. The Ripper watched him but didn't follow. As Jiho walked toward the exit, he did something that made Hana laugh and cry at the same time. He bowed. A small respectful bow toward the Void Ripper. Thank you for not killing me. Thank you for talking with me. The Ripper tilted its head again, watching until Jiho disappeared through the door. The preparation chamber door closed behind him. For a moment, Jiho just stood there, letting the adrenaline drain from his body. Then the door to the observation room burst open. Students flooded in, not just his classmates, but students from other departments, other species. They surrounded him, asking questions in a dozen languages, their voices overlapping. How did you do that? What did you say to it? Can you teach us? Is that a normal human ability? Jiho held up his hands, overwhelmed. Please, I can't. I need a moment. Professor Velmara's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone return to your stations. Kang Jiho needs space. The crowd reluctantly pulled back. Professor Velmara approached Jiho. Her large eyes studied him with an expression he couldn't read. That should not have been possible, she said quietly. But it was, Jiho replied. You risked your life to prove a point. No, Jiho said. I risked my life to show the truth. Humans aren't just survivors or predators. We're communicators. We're bridge builders. We turned wolves into dogs, not by dominating them, but by understanding them. We've lived alongside predators for millions of years. We learned their language. Velmara was silent for a long moment. Then she did something surprising. She bowed, a gesture using all 6 arms that Jiho recognized as a sign of deep respect in her culture. I was wrong about your species, she said. I owe you and all humans an apology. What you did today, it changes everything we thought we knew about predator interaction. The dean of the academy stepped forward. He was a massive being, roughly humanoid but covered in thick plates like armor. Kang Jiho, the dean said in a voice that rumbled like thunder. The Galactic Academy Council will need to review what happened here today. This has significant implications for xenobiology, diplomacy, and interspecies relations. You may have just changed the course of galactic history. Jiho looked through the observation window at the Void Ripper. The creature sat in its habitat, watching back. And for just a moment, Jiho could have sworn it made the clicking sound he had used. Learning. Remembering. Kang Jiho walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Academy's Xenobiology wing. His footsteps echoed in the corridor that seemed to stretch forever. Everything here was built for species much larger than humans. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above him, and the walls glowed with a soft blue light that made him feel like he was underwater. He was nervous. Not because of the size of the place, but because of the stairs. Every alien student he passed stopped to look at him. Some whispered to their friends. Others simply watched him with eyes that were too large or too many. Or in places where eyes shouldn't be. Jiho knew what they were thinking. Human, Deathworlder, Predator. Earth had only joined the Galactic Alliance 5 years ago. Before that, most species didn't know humans existed. When they finally learned about Earth, they were shocked. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, one of the most dangerous planets in known space. It had multiple apex predators, extreme weather, deadly diseases, and toxic plants. Most species couldn't survive there for a single day without protection suits. Yet humans lived there, thrived there. That made other species uncomfortable. Jiho found the classroom and stepped inside. The room was circular, with seats arranged in rising levels around a central demonstration area. About 30 students were already there, representing at least 15 different species. Some looked like birds, others like crystals, and a few he couldn't even begin to describe. "You must be the new human," a voice said beside him. Jiho turned to see a young woman with a friendly smile. She looked completely human, which was a relief. "I'm Yun Hana," she said, offering her hand. "I got here 2 months ago. Trust me, it gets easier." "Kang Jiho," he replied, shaking her hand. "Does the staring ever stop?" Hana laughed. "Not really, but you learn to ignore it. Come on, sit with me. I'll warn you about the professor." They found seats in the middle section. As they sat down, Hana leaned close and lowered her voice. "Professor Velmara is tough," she whispered. "She's Silurian, which means she's from a water world. Very different culture. She doesn't think much of humans. She thinks our reputation as Deathworlders is just stories we made up to sound impressive." Jiho frowned. "Why would we do that?" "I don't know. But she's going to try to prove we're not special. Just be careful." Before Jiho could ask more, the lights dimmed. A figure entered the demonstration area from a side door. Professor Velmara was tall and thin, with smooth dark green skin that seemed to shimmer. She had 6 arms, each ending in delicate fingers, and large eyes that looked black in the dim light. "Welcome to Advanced Xenobiology," she said. Her voice was surprisingly deep and had a strange echo to it, as if she was speaking from underwater. "This semester we will study predator behavior across different environments. Not from books, not from recordings. You will face real predators and demonstrate your species' natural survival responses." A nervous murmur ran through the class. "Each of you has evolved different defenses," Velmara continued. She moved gracefully, her arms gesturing as she spoke. "Some of you can camouflage. Some can release toxins. Some have armor or speed. Today I will explain how this practical examination works." She pressed a control panel, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a large reinforced enclosure with various environments: forest, desert, water, and ice. Over the next few weeks, each species will enter the enclosure with a Class 3 predator from your homeworld's threat category, Velmara explained. "You will demonstrate how your instincts guide you to survive. This is not a test of courage. It is a test of evolutionary adaptation." One student, a being made of what looked like floating crystals, raised a hand. "What about species that have no predators on their homeworld?" "Then you will face a predator from a similar environment class," Velmara answered. "Any other questions?" Jiho raised his hand. Velmara's large eyes focused on him, and he felt like she was looking through him rather than at him. "Yes, human? What kind of predator will humans face?" Jiho asked. A strange expression crossed Velmara's face. It might have been a smile, though it was hard to tell with her alien features. "An excellent question," she said. "Humans are special after all. You come from a Class 12 death world. Your planet has hundreds of apex predators. so I have obtained special permission to use something appropriate for your capabilities. Hana grabbed Jiho's arm, her fingers tight with worry. For the human demonstrations, Velmara continued, I will be using a Class 5 Predator, a Void Ripper to be specific. The classroom erupted. Students began talking over each other, their voices rising in pitch. Some stood up from their seats. Professor, that's insane, someone shouted. Jiho wasn't sure which student said it. Class 5 Predators are restricted, another voice called out. Velmara raised 2 of her 6 arms, calling for silence. I have full authorization from the Safety Committee. The enclosure is rated for Class 7 threats. There is no danger to anyone outside the demonstration area. What about danger to the humans inside? Hana demanded, standing up. That, Velmara said coldly, is what we are testing. If humans are truly apex predators from a death world, a Class 5 threat should be manageable. If not, then perhaps Earth's classification has been exaggerated. Jiho felt all eyes turned toward him and Hana. He understood now. This wasn't just a class exercise. This was a challenge. Velmara wanted to prove that humans weren't special, that Earth's reputation was just fear and rumor. The rest of the class passed in a blur. Velmara explained safety protocols and showed recordings of previous year's demonstrations. Jiho watched a Vextar student face something that looked like a liquid shadow. The student phased through dimensions, becoming translucent until the predator lost interest. He watched a Gathron student release a sonic pulse that sent a charging beast into confused circles. Every demonstration showed the same thing: avoidance, defense, escape. No one tried to engage with the predators. They treated them as forces of nature to be survived, not understood. After class, students filed out quickly. No one wanted to talk to the humans who would be facing a Void Ripper. Jiho and Hana walked slowly back toward the dormitory section. You don't have to do this, Hana said quietly. You just got here. You can file a complaint, request a transfer. Jiho shook his head. No, I came here to learn and represent Earth. Running away on the first day won't help anyone. Jiho, Void Rippers have killed trained soldiers. They're not just predators. They're intelligent hunters that enjoy stalking sentient prey. I know, Jiho said. He had read about them on the journey to the academy. But every creature has patterns. Every hunter has a language. My grandmother taught me that. Hana looked at him with concern. Your grandmother fought Void Rippers? No, Jiho smiled slightly. But she rehabilitated wolves, tigers, and bears. She always said the same thing. Every creature speaks. You just have to be quiet enough to listen. They reached the dormitory entrance. Hana put her hand on his shoulder. I'm going first, she said. The demonstrations are in 2 weeks and humans are scheduled last. So I'll face it before you. Maybe I can learn something that will help. We'll both survive this, Jiho said, though he wasn't entirely sure he believed it. That night, Jiho lay in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. Through the window he could see 3 moons and a nebula that painted the sky purple and gold. It was beautiful but alien. Everything here was alien. He thought about home. His grandmother's farm in the countryside, the wolf pack they had raised from cubs after their mother was killed by poachers, the injured tiger that spent 2 years recovering in their barn, the bear that would sit with him by the pond on summer evenings. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. Jiho, humans are not the strongest or fastest, but we have something special. We can understand. We can communicate. We can build bridges even with those who want to harm us. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep, knowing that in 2 weeks he would have to prove whether his grandmother was right. The next 3 days were chaos. The video of Jiho's demonstration with the Void Ripper spread across the entire academy within hours. By the next day, it had reached every planet in the Galactic Alliance. Students and professors Jiho had never met stopped him in corridors to ask questions. Some wanted to shake his hand. Others just wanted to stare at him like he was some kind of strange specimen. The xenobiology department called an emergency meeting. They wanted Jiho to explain exactly what he had done and how he had done it. The lecture hall was filled with over 300 beings from dozens of species, all waiting to hear the humans speak. Jiho stood at the podium, feeling very small. Professor Velmara sat in the front row, her dark eyes encouraging. Hana gave him a thumbs up from her seat. Thank you for coming, Jiho began. His voice echoed in the large space. I know you all want to understand what happened with the Void Ripper. So I'll try to explain. He pressed a button and images appeared on the screen behind him. Pictures of Earth, forests, oceans, mountains, and animals. So many animals. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Jiho said. This is true. Our planet has thousands of dangerous species. But here's what makes Earth unique. Humans didn't just survive these predators. We lived with them. We studied them. And eventually we made them our partners. The next image showed an ancient cave painting. Humans and wolves hunting together. 30,000 years ago, humans and wolves began cooperating. We didn't conquer them. We didn't enslave them. We formed a partnership. The wolves helped us hunt. We shared our food with them. Over time, wolves became dogs. Humans' best friends, murmurs ran through the audience. The concept seemed to confuse many species. But it wasn't just wolves, Jiho continued. We domesticated cats, horses, cattle, chickens, bees. We even formed relationships with predators that could kill us. In some cultures, humans lived alongside tigers. In others, they understood bear behavior so well, they could predict their movements and avoid conflict. A professor in the back raised a tentacle. But how? Most species develop defenses against predators. Armor, toxins, camouflage. Humans have none of these. How did you survive? We developed something different, Jiho said. We developed empathy. The ability to understand what another creature is thinking and feeling, not just other humans, but any creature. He changed the image to show a diagram of the human brain. Human brains are wired for social connection. We can read body language across species. We can hear emotions and sounds. We can sense threat levels and adjust our behavior. This isn't magic. It's evolution. Earth had so many dangerous animals that humans who could understand and communicate with them survived better than humans who just fought or ran. Another image appeared. A human child sitting peacefully with a large dog. We teach this to our children from birth. How to approach animals. How to read their signals. How to show respect and establish trust. Every human learns that eye contact can be threatening. That slow movements are less scary than fast ones. That giving space shows respect. That patience often works better than force. Professor Velmara stood up. But the Void Ripper isn't a social species. It doesn't form packs or families. How did you know it would respond? I didn't know, Jiho admitted. But I knew that every creature, social or not, has patterns. The Void Ripper hunts by reading fear. It attacks prey that runs or fights because those behaviors trigger its predator instincts. So I showed neither fear nor aggression. I showed calm, curiosity, respect. And the Ripper didn't know what to do with that. He advanced to the next slide, showing a behavioral chart. Every predator has 3 basic responses to a new being: attack, ignore, or investigate. The Ripper chose investigate because I didn't fit its programming for prey. I became something new, something interesting. And that created an opening for communication. A small bird-like student raised a wing. Could other species learn this? Jiho thought about it. Maybe. But humans have been practicing for thousands of years. It's built into our culture, our instincts. We have sayings like, you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. We tell children to be gentle with animals. We create entire professions around understanding animal behavior. For humans, it's not just survival. It's who we are. The questions continued for 2 hours. Jiho answered as best he could, trying to explain concepts that were second nature to humans but completely foreign to species that had evolved differently. After the presentation, the Academy's dean approached Jiho privately. The council wants you to conduct more demonstrations, the dean said. There are researchers across the Alliance who don't believe what they saw. They think it was luck or trickery. They want proof that this is a real human ability. And so began the most intense week of Jiho's life. Every day, he entered different habitats with different dangerous creatures. The xenobiology department brought in specimens from across the galaxy. On the second day, he faced a swarm hunter from the Kepler colonies. A creature that attacked in coordinated groups like piranhas. Jiho sat quietly and observed their patterns. He noticed they always sent scouts first. He made himself look like part of the environment, moving only when they moved. After an hour, the swarm accepted him as a non-threat and went about their normal behavior, flowing around him like water around a stone. On the third day, they brought in a crystal serpent, an ambush predator from a desert world. It was huge, nearly 20 feet long, with scales that could cut through steel. Jiho approached it differently. He played dead at first, lying completely still. The serpent investigated but found no heartbeat pattern that interested it. Slowly over hours, Jiho began moving. Tiny movements. Just breathing at first, then small finger twitches. The serpent watched but didn't attack. Jiho was introducing himself gradually, showing he was alive but not food. By the fourth day, he offered the serpent a piece of synthetic meat. Not as a bribe but as a gesture. The serpent took it and Jiho slowly built trust through repeated, predictable interactions. On the fifth day, they introduced a territorial screamer, a creature known for attacking anything that entered its space. Jiho approached this one by making himself small. He crawled on his belly, showing submission. He made soft sounds, showing he meant no challenge. When the screamer charged, Jiho didn't run. He lay flat and still. The screamer stopped, confused. After several false charges, the creature realized Jiho wasn't trying to take its territory. They established boundaries. Jiho could exist in certain areas, the screamer in others. Peaceful coexistence. Hana watched every demonstration, and she wasn't just watching. She was learning. Inspired by Jiho, she began her own experiments with less dangerous creatures. She discovered she had a talent for understanding herd animals. She could predict their movements, calm their panic, guide them without force. "You were right," she told Jiho after his fifth demonstration. "It's not about being the strongest. It's about being the most understanding." But not everyone was impressed. A faction within the academy, led by Administrator Krelvan, grew increasingly hostile. Krelvan was a tall, thin being from a species that valued logic and order above all else. On the seventh day, Krelvan called for a formal hearing. Jiho and Hana were summoned to the council chambers. The chamber was massive and circular, with seats rising in tiers. Council members from various species sat in judgment. Krelvan stood at the prosecution podium. "Honored council," Krelvan began, his voice cold and precise. "I am calling into question the validity of Kang Jiho's demonstrations. I believe he is using technology or biological augmentation to achieve these results." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Jiho felt his stomach tighten. "Humans are known to be technologically advanced." Krelvan continued. "I propose that Kang Jiho is using pheromone emitters or neural dampeners or some other device to control these creatures. No being can simply communicate with predators across species lines without artificial enhancement." Professor Velmara stood up from the observers section. "Administrator Krelvan, I personally scanned Kang Jiho before each demonstration. He has no devices, no augmentations. What you saw was natural human ability. Then I question why this ability has never been documented before." Krelvan shot back. "Humans have been in the Alliance for 5 years. Why are we only seeing this now?" "Because," Jiho said, standing up, "you never asked us to show you before. You classified Earth as a death world and assumed that meant we were just another predator species. You never looked deeper." Krelvan's eyes narrowed. "Pretty words. But I remain unconvinced. I propose a final test. If Kang Jiho truly has this ability, let him prove it beyond any doubt. Let him face the unbreakable." The chamber erupted into shocked voices. Even the council members looked disturbed. The dean stood, calling for order. "Administrator Krelvan, the unbreakable has killed 3 handlers and injured dozens more. It has been deemed too dangerous for any interaction." "Exactly," Krelvan said with a thin smile. "If humans are truly as special as they claim, then surely Kang Jiho can succeed where all others have failed. Unless, of course, he would like to admit that his previous demonstrations were staged or enhanced." Jiho looked at Hana. She shook her head urgently, her eyes pleading with him to refuse. But Jiho knew he had no choice. If he refused, doubt would follow humans forever. Every achievement. 2 weeks passed faster than Jiho expected. He spent his time attending lectures, studying alien biology and watching recordings of predator behavior. Every night he dreamed of teeth and claws and darkness. The demonstration day arrived cold and gray. The Academy's artificial weather system was simulating autumn, and red leaves fell from the bioengineered trees outside. Jiho walked to the xenobiology wing with Hana. Neither of them spoke much. The observation room was crowded, not just with their class, but with professors, researchers, and students from other departments. Word had spread about Professor Velmara's controversial exercise. Everyone wanted to see if the humans would survive. The demonstration enclosure was visible through a massive transparent wall. Inside, the environment shifted and changed, preparing for each student's specific test. Right now it showed a rocky desert landscape under a purple sky. "We'll begin with the crystalline students," Professor Velmara announced. Her 6 arms worked various control panels. "Yoon Hana will demonstrate last, followed by Kang Jiho tomorrow." Jiho felt relief and disappointment at the same time. One more day to prepare. One more day to worry. The first demonstration began. A Vextar student, whose body looked like animated crystal formations, entered the enclosure. The environment shifted to show deep caves with glowing minerals. A creature emerged from the shadows, something with too many legs and a mouth that opened in 3 directions. The crystal student immediately phased. Its body became translucent, almost invisible. The predator lunged through empty space. After a few minutes of confusion, the predator lost interest and retreated. The student re-solidified and quickly exited. The observation room applauded politely. "Adequate," Professor Velmara said, making notes. "Natural phase-shifting response. Textbook execution." The demonstrations continued. A Gathron student used sonic pulses to disorient a charging beast. A Mothkari student released pheromones that made a swarm predator ignore them completely. A heavily armored Krell student simply withdrew into their shell and waited until the threat passed. Every demonstration followed the same pattern: avoid, hide, defend, escape. No one tried to understand the predators. They were just obstacles to survive. Hours passed. Jiho's legs grew tired from standing. The demonstrations were interesting but also repetitive. He found himself studying the predators more than the students. Each creature had patterns. They hunted in specific ways, reacted to certain stimuli, had particular blind spots in their awareness. Finally, as artificial sunset painted the enclosure orange and red, Professor Velmara announced, "Next demonstration. Yoon Hana human, please enter the preparation chamber." The room became silent. Even students who had been whispering stopped. All eyes turned to Hana. She squeezed Jiho's hand once, then walked toward the entrance. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit, standard academy issue. No weapons, no tools. Just her. Jiho watched her disappear through the door. His heart pounded. Through the observation window, he saw her emerge into the enclosure. The environment had changed to show a dense jungle at night. Fog rolled across the ground. Trees with black bark and silver leaves created deep shadows. Professor Velmara's voice echoed through speakers. "Beginning human demonstration. Introducing Class 5 Predator, Void Ripper Specimen, 7. A collective gasp ran through the observation room. Something moved in the shadows. At first, Jiho couldn't see it clearly. Then he realized the darkness itself was moving. The Void Ripper looked like living shadow, roughly the size of a large tiger but longer and lower to the ground. It had 6 limbs that moved with terrible grace. Its head was wrong, with too many eyes that glowed pale yellow. When it opened its mouth, Jiho saw teeth like broken glass. Hana saw it too. She backed away slowly, her eyes tracking its movement. The Void Ripper circled her, testing. It moved through the shadows so smoothly it seemed to teleport from one dark patch to another. "Come on, Hana," Jiho whispered. The Ripper lunged. Hana dove to the side, rolling behind a large rock. The creature's claws scraped stone, sending sparks flying. Hana grabbed a fallen branch, wielding it like a weapon. It was a pitiful defense against something so deadly, but it was better than nothing. The Ripper circled the rock. Hana moved with it, keeping the stone between them. She was using the environment, Jiho realized, staying in open areas where the Ripper couldn't use shadows to approach unseen. Keeping obstacles as barriers. Textbook human response, Professor Velmara narrated to the room. Fight or flight instinct. Improvised tool use, tactical awareness. But notice she's still operating on fear. Defensive posture. Survival mode. The demonstration continued for 10 agonizing minutes. Hana managed to avoid direct contact through quick thinking and careful positioning. She used fire from a broken equipment panel to create light, limiting the Ripper's shadow walking ability. She climbed elevated positions that gave her better sight lines. Finally, Professor Velmara ended the test. The Ripper was recalled through a hidden door. Hana stood in the center of the enclosure, breathing hard, covered in sweat and dirt. She had survived, but barely. The observation room erupted in applause and relieved chatter. Hana emerged from the preparation chamber a few minutes later. Students crowded around her, congratulating her. She had done what many thought impossible, survived a Class 5 predator. But Jiho saw her hands shaking. He saw the fear still in her eyes. She had survived, yes, but at a cost. Professor Velmara raised her arms for silence. Well done, Yunhana. You have demonstrated that humans can indeed survive extreme threats through intelligence and adaptability. However, she paused, her dark eyes sweeping the room. Survival is the minimum requirement for a Death World species. Tomorrow we will see if Kang Jiho can do better. The crowd dispersed slowly. Students returned to their dormitories, talking excitedly about what they had seen. Jiho waited until the room was nearly empty before approaching Hana. You were amazing, he said. Hana laughed, but it sounded hollow. I was terrified. Every second I thought it would get me. Jiho, that thing was intelligent. It was learning my patterns. If the test had lasted 5 more minutes. But it didn't. You survived. Surviving isn't enough, Hana said quietly. You saw Velmara's face. She wasn't impressed. She proved her point. Humans can survive, but we're not special. We're just scared animals running from bigger animals. Jiho didn't know what to say. She was right. Despite Hana's success, Professor Velmara had diminished it, made it seem ordinary. That night, Jiho couldn't sleep. He paced his small quarters thinking. Tomorrow was his turn. He could do what Hana did. Run, hide, defend, escape. He would probably survive. The academy had good safety protocols, but would that prove anything? Would it show that humans deserved respect? Or would it just confirm what Velmara already believed? That humans were just another species, nothing special, all reputation and no substance. He thought about his grandmother, about the wolves she raised, about the tiger that had charged at her once, teeth bared, and how she had simply stood still and spoken calmly until it recognized her voice and stopped. Every creature speaks, she had said. You just have to be quiet enough to listen. An idea began forming in Jiho's mind. It was crazy, possibly suicidal, but it was the only way to show what humans really were, not fighters or survivors, but something else, something the galaxy hadn't seen before. Early the next morning, Jiho went to Professor Velmara's office. She looked surprised to see him. I want to make a request about today's demonstration, Jiho said. Oh? Velmara leaned back in her chair, studying him with those large dark eyes. What kind of request? I don't want the standard enclosure setup, Jiho said. I want to be placed in the Void Ripper's actual habitat space. With minimal barriers. Velmara's 6 arms became very still. You want to enter the Predator's home territory? Without safety protocols? With monitoring? Emergency extraction if needed. But I want to meet it on its own ground. That's suicide, Velmara said flatly. Maybe, Jiho agreed. But it's also the only way to show what humans really are. We don't just survive predators, we understand them. Professor Velmara stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, something like a smile crossed her alien features. Very well, she said. If you're so eager to prove something, I'll grant your request. But know this, if you fail, if you die, it will set humanity's reputation back decades. Every human in the academy will be questioned. Is your pride worth that? Jiho met her gaze steadily. It's not pride. It's truth. And yes, it's worth it. Then we have an agreement. See you in the demonstration chamber at noon, Kang Jiho. I hope your confidence is justified. As Jiho left the office, he wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. 3 days felt like 3 years. Jiho spent every waking hour studying recordings of the nightmare worm. The creature's history was brutal. It had been captured 5 years ago from the Obsidian Cluster, a region of space known for producing the most aggressive predators in the galaxy. The worm was massive, nearly 30 feet long, with armored scales that could deflect plasma weapons. It had 12 legs, each ending in claws that could tear through steel. Its head was dragon-like, with 3 rows of teeth and eyes that burned with constant rage. But worst of all, it was intelligent. Previous handlers had reported that it learned from every encounter, adapted to every strategy, and seemed to take pleasure in causing harm. 3 handlers had died trying to feed it. Dozens more had been injured. The Academy kept it in maximum security, in a reinforced habitat that could contain a military warship. Most researchers believed it should be returned to the Obsidian Cluster or destroyed. But the Galactic Alliance had laws protecting all sentient species, even dangerous ones. So the worm remained, alone and angry. Jiho watched the recordings over and over. He studied every attack, every moment of aggression, And slowly he began to see patterns that others had missed. The worm attacked most violently when approached from the front. When confined to small spaces, during what would have been feeding times in its natural habitat, and always when handlers showed fear or aggression. "It's traumatized," Jiho said to Hana on the second night. They sat in his quarters reviewing footage on his tablet. "What?" Hana looked up from her own research. "The worm. It's not just aggressive. It's traumatized. Look," he played a clip. "See how it retreats to the back corner after each attack? That's not predator behavior. That's defensive behavior. It attacks because it believes everything is a threat. Jiho, it's killed people. That's not trauma. That's just being a monster." "No," Jiho insisted. "Monsters don't exist. Only creatures that are scared, hurt, or confused." The worm was captured violently, torn from its natural habitat, kept in a cage. Every interaction it's had with other beings has been hostile. Of course it's aggressive. It's protecting itself the only way it knows how. Hana was quiet for a moment. "So what's your plan?" "The same as always. Don't treat it like a monster. Treat it like an intelligent being that's in pain. And if you're wrong, if it really is just a killer," Jiho smiled sadly, "then at least I tried to show it respect." On the morning of the test, Jiho woke early. He took a long shower, ate a simple breakfast, and wrote a letter to his grandmother, just in case. He told her he was proud to be her grandson, that everything she taught him had led to this moment, that he loved her. The demonstration was scheduled for noon. By 11, the observation chamber was packed beyond capacity. Council members from every Alliance world had arrived. News feeds from a dozen planets broadcast live. This wasn't just about one human anymore. It was about Earth's place in the galaxy. Hana found Jiho in the preparation chamber. She hugged him tightly. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. "Let me come with you?" Jiho pulled back, surprised. "Hana, no. It's too dangerous." "Exactly. And you've been teaching me that humans work better together. We're pack animals, remember? We evolved to cooperate. 2 humans will be better than 1. Jiho started to argue, but then stopped. She was right. Humans weren't solitary predators. They were social, cooperative hunters. Having Hana with him might actually improve their chances. "Okay," he said, "but you follow my lead. If I say run, you run. Promise me." "Promise," Hana said, though they both knew she was lying. They entered the observation chamber together. The crowd fell silent. Administrator Krelvan sat in the front row, his expression smug. Professor Velmara looked worried. The dean simply looked sad, like he was watching students walk to their execution. "Kang Jiho and Yun Hana," the dean's voice came through the speakers. "You are about to face the most dangerous test in this academy's history. I'm required to inform you that death is not just possible, but probable. This is your final chance to withdraw." Jiho looked at Hana. She nodded. They both spoke together. "We're ready." "May the stars protect you," the dean said quietly. The door to the habitat opened. The worm's enclosure was enormous, the size of a football field. The environment was dark and rocky, simulating the obsidian cluster's volcanic landscape. Sulfur smell filled the air. Heat radiated from glowing cracks in the ground, and at the far end of the enclosure, in the deepest shadows, 2 burning eyes watched them. Jiho and Hana walked slowly into the space. They didn't head toward the worm. Instead, they moved to the side, giving it maximum space. They found a large rock formation and sat down with their backs against it. "What are they doing?" someone in the observation room asked. "Waiting," Professor Velmara said softly. And wait they did. 5 minutes passed, 10, 20. The worm didn't move from its corner. It just watched, those burning eyes never blinking. "It's going to be hours before it does anything," Jiho whispered to Hana. The other handlers always rushed it, tried to force interaction. "We're going to do the opposite. We're going to show that we're not in a hurry, that we respect its space." 30 minutes passed. An hour. The observation room grew restless, but Jiho and Hana remained patient. Then Jiho noticed something. The enclosure's feeding schedule. Every day at the same time, automated systems dropped food into the habitat. The worm had been conditioned to expect food, but the food always came with handlers trying to interact. Food meant danger. "The feeding system," Jiho whispered to Hana. "Can you see the dispenser?" Hana looked around and spotted it near the ceiling. "Yes, why?" When it activates, the worm is going to be at maximum stress. We need to move away from the food drop zone. Show we're not competing for resources. Another 20 minutes passed. Then the feeding system activated with a loud mechanical sound. A large piece of synthetic meat dropped into the center of the enclosure. The worm's eyes flared. Its body tensed. This was when handlers usually approached, tried to use the feeding time for training or medical checks. But Jiho and Hana moved in the opposite direction. They walked slowly to the far side of the enclosure, as far from the food as possible. Then they sat down again and turned away, giving the worm complete privacy. In the observation room, researchers leaned forward. This was unusual behavior. The worm waited, suspicious. Nothing happened. No handlers approached. No one tried to take its food or use it as leverage. Slowly, cautiously, the worm emerged from its corner. It approached the food, watching Jiho and Hana the entire time. When they didn't react, didn't move, the worm took the meat and retreated back to its corner to eat. First barrier broken, Jiho whispered. It knows we won't steal its food. They waited another hour. Then Jiho did something strange. He opened a water bottle he had brought and poured some water onto the ground in front of them. In this volcanic environment, water was precious. He was offering a resource without demanding anything in return. The worm finished eating. Slowly, it began moving closer to the humans, not charging, just investigating. It circled them from a distance, keeping at least 20 feet away. Jiho and Hana sat perfectly still. They breathed slowly. They didn't make eye contact. They simply existed, showing no threat, no fear, no aggression. 2 hours into the demonstration, the worm had closed the distance to 10 feet. It could strike at any moment. One leap, one snap of those massive jaws, and they would both die. But Jiho noticed something important. The worm's body language had changed. Its scales were no longer raised in aggression. Its legs were positioned for observation, not attack. It was curious. Hana, Jiho said softly, I'm going to try something. Don't move no matter what. Before she could argue, Jiho slowly reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small tablet and set it on the ground between them. He activated it and soft music began playing. Not human music, something he had researched from the obsidian cluster's few peaceful regions. The sound of volcanic vents, the rhythm of mineral-rich water flowing over rocks. The worm's head tilted, its eyes focused on the tablet. The sound was familiar. Home. Something from before the capture, before the cage, before the fear and pain. The creature took a step closer. Then another. It was now within striking distance. Everyone in the observation room held their breath. The worm's massive head lowered. It was looking at the tablet. Then something extraordinary happened. The worm began making sounds. Not roars or growls, soft sounds almost like humming. It was responding to the music. Jiho's eyes filled with tears. This wasn't a monster. This was a being that missed its home. That was lonely. That had been treated like a weapon for so long it forgot how to be anything else. Slowly, carefully, Jiho stood up. The worm's eyes tracked him, but it didn't attack. Jiho picked up the water bottle and poured more water on the ground, creating a small puddle. An offering. A gift, the worm watched. Then it did something that made the entire observation room gasp. It approached the water and drank. Not aggressively, gently. And when it raised its head, it looked at Jiho directly. For the first time in 5 years, the nightmare worm was not alone, with Jiho knew not to push further. He had achieved the impossible. Peaceful coexistence with the most dangerous creature in the academy. He and Hana slowly walked toward the exit. The worm watched them go, but